Welcome to another episode of Mission Compliance, Unleashing Growth Potential for Defense Contractors. In today's episode, we continue down the road of understanding CMMC, its regulations, and controls. Up next is AC L2-3.1.16, Authorize wireless access prior to allowing such connections. We'll break down what this control means, why it matters, and how it impacts your organization's cybersecurity posture. We'll also provide practical insights and strategies for achieving compliance and securing your systems effectively. So whether you're a defense contractor aiming to win more contracts or simply someone interested in bolstering your cybersecurity knowledge, you're in the right place. Let's hit it. We're joined once again today by Mike Frieder, President of On-Call Compliance Solutions and a CMMC Professional Assessor. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Hey, always a pleasure, Roman.
So this week we're talking about connections, specifically how you can't just have open wireless networks. There needs to be a password or a token or some sort of authentication in place to protect CUI. If you watch our control videos on YouTube, this is one of our shortest videos. It seems pretty straightforward, so let's get right into it. Why is it important to require authorization to a wireless network?
This is a great question. And, I think this is one of those controls that it's easy to answer this control. And I think there's a couple ways you answer the control, which we'll get into in the second phase of the second question here. But the reality is that most of us go on about our day, and when we need internet, we have to have it. And that creates a dangerous scenario where in many circumstances, particularly for those of us who travel or do work out of coffee shops or whatnot, there's not really a lot of thought about connecting to an unsecured wireless network. And I have to tell you, it's very dangerous. Just to give you sort of an idea of the level of danger that exists, what you're doing when you connect to an open and unsecured Wi-Fi network is you're transmitting the information from your computer through that router behind the wireless access point in clear text, meaning whatever you send is unencrypted, and anyone who is also on that wireless network can essentially record the traffic going back and forth as they receive those packets too. They just need a free bit of software. Great example is one piece of software is called Wireshark. You can kind of Google. And if they can get the packets that you're sending back and forth, it means that they can essentially steal your information, passwords, you name it. I mean, they can get it. It's all in clear text. That's really, really dangerous. And then, there's tons and tons of other attacks that can be run on an open wireless network. Things like an evil twin attack where hackers are setting up malicious hotspots, which seemingly have trustworthy names like cafe free Wi-Fi or, free airport Wi-Fi, et cetera. And then when you connect, they can easily intercept your data that way. There's a man-in-the-middle attack. There's a password cracking attack, packet sniffing attacks, security vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. But the real point here is this. If you have defense information on a machine, it is not your average machine. It is a machine that requires higher levels of information security if you're doing defense work, right? So NIST SP 800-171 demands that in this control, which is, again, 3.1.16, the authorizing wireless access. So why is it such a crucial control? Because most people just honestly get lazy and do it anyway. They just assume they're going to be okay. They assume that there's not going to be any negative consequences. They never had it happen to them before. But unfortunately, that's just not true. It's just simply not true. Again, you can easily have your computer penetrated and attacked through an open Wi-Fi network. And that's why NIST requires you to not connect to an open Wi-Fi network. It requires you to have authentication of some kind in between you and whatever you're sending and receiving from. So what does that do? Well, it will encrypt the signal. I think it also goes back, you almost have to link this control to another control, which is you must either physically protect CUI or you must encrypt CUI which cannot be physically protected. So there's only two ways you can protect CUI, physical or encryption. And wireless is one of the two primary methods by which you would not be able to physically protect that wireless connection. You have to encrypt it. And so again, this control really ties in with the mandate to encrypt any kind of CUI where it can't be physically protected. Again, wireless is that situation. In case you're wondering, the other situation is VPN. VPN is a tremendous place where attacks happen. And so you have to encrypt that as well. Very, very important. So again, next time you're in a cafe, next time you're in an airport, again, don't just connect to it because you can or you need internet. It needs to be a secure network. And honestly, you really need to have a little bit of faith that it's going to be secure. It can't just sort of be like generic cafe type internet here. Those are kind of dangerous to connect to. Again, attackers do sit there in the airport, exfiltrating data, stealing identities, doing all kinds of nasty stuff. There's a lot of money in that, so don't fool yourself. But yeah, that's kind of what it's all about.
So for those following along with us, you may be asking, what if we already have a big secure building that only our people are allowed access to? Isn't that secure enough? Nope. This control mandates that authentication of some kind is required. So what are the key assessment points that an assessor will be looking for on this one?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing is to determine if in your primary network wireless access points are identified. In other words, do you even know what your wireless access points are? And therefore, if a rogue wireless access point showed up, would you know that that doesn't belong there and could have, potential for going to go track that down? Lots and lots of ways to do that. One is honestly, it's just documentation. You just have to have in your baseline configuration, you must have it documented what wireless access points are being utilized in the CUI handling network. Again, a sample answer might be the wireless network controller system identifies all wireless access points, including both authorized and unauthorized. So in this kind of a sample answer, we actually have a little bit higher intelligence level. We may have something like a ubiquity setup where they have a wireless controller that not only can detect itself and know what wireless access points are under its control, but also the controller can send a network administrator a message saying, hey, a new wireless network has been detected, and this is a non-authorized wireless network, and please go investigate that. That's really important. I'll tell you, I have been to an on-site inspection where we actually found a rogue wireless access point hanging from a tree outside of a window. And it was a really wild scenario. I mean, we asked, what is this? We said, how did this get here? And it took 4 hours for someone to finally come forward and say, yeah, the maintenance guy actually put a portable Wi-Fi weather station out in a tree to, I don't know, it was like some kind of a silly bet about the humidity inside versus outside. It was some silly reason that it was there, but that weather station happened to have multiple known vulnerabilities and exploits possible. And so we really were genuinely questioning whether that was an authorized device, whether somebody knew that it was exploitable. Again, you could YouTube a video literally on how to hack into that device and steal Wi-Fi from the building, thus putting you on the same network as controlled unclassified information. Really kind of a strange incident. Those things do happen. I will tell you that not to be overly paranoid about them, but I do occasionally, get some of these really wild stories about strange things that happen around defense contractors, in their buildings and access to information and things like that that are just really honestly don't happen in normal commercial businesses. Again, nobody ever thinks it'll happen to them until it happens to them. Second assessment point is determine if wireless access is authorized prior to allowing such connections. In other words, can we determine that our wireless networks actually have passwords on them and require user authentication? Again, in this particular example sample answer, we might say no wireless access is possible without authorization via input of a secure password. That is a terrific answer. That is kind of really what they're looking for. And keep in mind, you will still have to have multi-factor authentication on any direct application that's accessing CUI. So just because you have a Wi-Fi password does not mean you don't also have to have multi-factor authentication going on for the data itself. Very important note. Good news is there's no multi-factor authentication required to connect to wireless, though. That really has not caught on yet. But those are the assessment points. It's a pretty short control. There's really only sort of 2 primary assessment points. And the most important thing is just, you want to make sure that you have something in your written policies for your employees that says don't connect to unsecured wireless access points. Because again, that can be great, great danger through transmitting and receiving unencrypted information.
What are the potential difficulties, if any, of enacting this one in an organization? I know you told us the story of the access port hanging from the tree. Is there anything else that you've seen pop up when trying to get companies compliant with this one?
It's a great question. I'll tell you, it's all cultural. That's the best thing I can really kind of explain it as is every wireless access point I've ever seen has come with the ability to turn on encryption, turn on passwords, etc. So it's not a technological holdback. I'll tell you what it is. It's a cultural holdback. There's a lot of companies out there, particularly some of the smaller ones, that just are in the habit of not having passwords around. They hate the fact that they've got to, use passwords on wireless and things like that. Maybe the CEO is really old school and just doesn't want to use a wireless password. I find that the only challenge we really have here is a cultural challenge. It's a challenge of the age-old convenience versus security. They just think it's more convenient to not have a password on there. No one's ever going to hack them. They don't believe in that, and it really could not be further from the truth. I mean, I guarantee you, if you leave a wireless access, particularly fast access, on, what winds up happening is you'll just start having people show up in your parking lot, basically just yanking off your wireless. The real danger is, again, for those people who are in the defense industry, generally speaking, it's pretty easy to tell that you're in the defense industry, whether it be from being listed out there publicly as a defense contractor or just because of the nature of your business. So people just honestly get weird and interested in what you have going on in that network, and they want to go explore if they can. So again, that's I just generally tend to find that it's not technological. It's all cultural. Now, the other thing that I tend to find is, and I don't know why, but occasionally we'll have people that hook up wireless access points with guest access on. In other words, a free open guest access that winds up landing them on their main network. They think for whatever reason that you can't access main company resources because they never try. But then they find out that maybe guest mode in the wireless access point just allows for open access, doesn't actually cut them off of access to the main network. So we've seen that one before too. Pretty rare, but nonetheless, it's worth mentioning here. But yeah, those are the main challenges. Again, it's not a technological challenge. It's just a matter of doing it and maybe getting over a couple of minutes worth of griping for some of your power users.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what comes next, Mike. It's a favorite part of the podcast, and I always add the disclaimer here. I will always explain that this is what we do, because I don't want somebody that tunes into this podcast for the first time to think that we take this last question seriously in any way, because we don't. Although sometimes the goofy prompt can lead to a good answer, but this next question, this is our silly question. All right. For those who are listening for the first time, do not take this next question seriously. With that being said, we've talked about the need to authorize access to organizational wireless networks. Is this because there are Wi-Fi access points that can predict the future and the public just isn't ready for something like that?
That's a good question. And normally I have a yes or no answer, but I think I probably don't know the answer to that. Artificial intelligence is a very hot topic right now, and there is a question of, can artificial intelligence predict the future? And there is no right or wrong answer to that, because it very well may be the case that artificial intelligence can use a pattern of past events to predict the future. And you know what? If you've got some kind of AI running on that wireless network, why couldn't it predict the future? I don't really see why not. I mean, I can tell you there's a lot of things that I can predict the future on. I can do forecasting for financials. I can do forecasting for weather. I can do forecasting for a lot of things that allow me to see into the future. And, you just never know what is behind that Wi-Fi network. Again, another really great reason why Wi-Fi networks that have open access and you don't know what's on them, well, we might not want to predict that you'll have a good future if you connect to them. It could be bad.
Well, artificial intelligence may or may not be able to predict the future, but you know what can predict the future? The Simpsons. It's been doing it for almost 40 years. Okay. Like it's almost scary at this point. Like you don't need to go to a psychic. You don't need to be predicting patterns. Just watch The Simpsons and it'll tell you what's going to happen in a few years. They seem to have a knack for it.
Yeah, they nail it every time.
It's almost scary at times.
You know what else does that? South Park.
There you go. Well, South Park, South Park predicts it and makes fun of it. I think Simpsons just predicts it and be like, this is what it is, you know. And on that weird note, that wraps up another great episode of Mission Compliance. We hope our discussion today has provided you with valuable insights and practical strategies and inspiration to navigate the ever-evolving world of defense. We'd like to thank Mike for joining us and giving us valuable information on wireless networks and why they need to be authorized. Thanks, Mike.
Oh, always a pleasure, Roman. Thanks for having me.
But the conversation doesn't end here. We encourage you to continue exploring these topics and connect with us on our social media channels. Share your thoughts, ask questions, and engage with fellow listeners using the hashtag Mission Compliance Podcast. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to your favorite podcast platform so you always know when new episodes like this one are released. And we'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate and review the show. Your feedback helps us to continue to bring you thought-provoking episodes and high-quality content. Join us next time as we delve further into the dynamic world of defense, security, and industry innovation. Until then, take care, stay informed, and make compliance your mission. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.